As the class began, Professor Yan came in with two young men. One of them Han Sen was familiar with. With a handsome smile, Tang Zhenliu greeted the students. Another guy had an angled face. Han Sen knew he was the chosen that ranked 6th, Yu Jiaming. Since Han Sen did not go to the ranking rounds, he had never fought Yu. Blackhawk students were polite and gave no more than applause. When Tang was introduced, Zhang Yang clapped so hard his hands were almost swollen. Professor Yan still used his old-fashioned way to teach, but when talking about different theories, he would ask Tang Zhenliu and Yu Mingjai to do demonstrations. With the participation of 2 stars, the teaching effect was perfect. Both stars showed high attainment in martial arts, and their demonstrations were successful. In a few words, the ultimate goal of the martial arts was to leverage one's own strength. Please welcome Yu Jiaming and Tang Zhenliu to demonstrate black and white boxing for us. Yu Jiaming cut in, Professor Yan, if it is just the two of us, the students would not feel for themselves the essence of black and white boxing. Would you invite 2 students to spar with Tang and me? The proposal led to applause. To spar with such stars was of course a rare opportunity. Tang also glanced at Yu Mingjai. He knew what Yu was thinking. Yu had fought him in the contest before and lost miserably. Now Yu was afraid he would lose again and did not want to be humiliated in front of the class. That being the case, we will choose 2 students to spar with Yu Mingjai and Tang Zhenliu in black and white boxing. Any volunteers? Tang had noticed Han Sen a long time ago. Seeing Han Sen not raising his hand, he felt relieved. Han Sen was so great at this that he would definitely lose if Han Sen came up on stage. As Tang Zhenrong let out a sigh of relief, Yu Mingjai suddenly asked, Professor Yan, I heard that Blackhawk has a student named Aoyang Ziosin who is in the top 10 of the Military Academy League. Sorry, Aoyang is not here today, Professor Yan said casually. Would you choose someone else yourself? Yu Mingjai smiled and asked the students, besides Aoyang Ziosin, who is the best martial artist here? All eyes were on Han Sen. Although they had never seen him practicing martial arts, they could tell from his skills of warframe operation that his fitness was great. Yu Mingjai paused. He did not expect the students to have the same candidate in mind. It seemed that the student that was looked at was very influential in the school. But Yu did not take Han Sen too seriously. There were so many military school students in First God's Sanctuary, yet few were among the chosen. As one of the chosen, he did not really think of the students as his true opponents. Tang Zhenliu saw the look in Yu's eyes and knew he was about to do something stupid. But Yu did not know what was on Tang's mind. He smiled at Han Sen and asked, What is your name? Would you spar with me in black and white boxing? Han Sen was a bit upset. He did not raise his hand, so why would Yu appoint him? Go ahead, Sen. You will be great. His classmates were very supportive and curious about Han Sen's martial arts skill level. Yu Mingjai was glad to see that Han Sen's popularity even exceeded himself as a star. He wanted to appoint Aoyang Ziosin to show off, so that these students would realize the difference between a military student and the chosen. Han Sen, would you throw the punches first? Yu Mingjai said generously. The one who attacked would enjoy certain advantages. Can we start now? Han Sen looked at Yu and asked. Sure. Ouch. Yu Mingjai had just agreed when a punch hit his chest before he could react. Yu stepped back and became furious. Professor Yan was explaining seriously. Han Sen did very well. This is a classic psychological gaming technique, taking advantage of the weaknesses in the opponent's mind and hitting hard. However, Han Sen could have improved by hitting the vital parts of his opponent's body, such as nose or eyes, which would disable his opponent and help himself in the future rounds. The students nodded, while Yu Mingjai was very pissed. Then he had to suppress his anger, since the professor had put it like this. Han Sen did very well. Now we will continue. Yu Mingjai squeezed a smile and went back to his position. Tang was laughing so hard inwardly. Yu Mingjai, you really did ask for this. How could a military school student be compared to the chosen? In fact, most of the students also thought so. Although they felt that Han Sen should be great, they believed that against one of the top unevolved individuals in the alliance, Han Sen would still fall short. After all, Yu basically ranked 6th in the First God's Sanctuary, while Han Sen was only the champion of a school-wide warframe game. Not even a martial arts game. Han Sen directly threw his fist at Yu Mingjai's face, since Professor Yan had instructed him to hit hard in the vital parts. Yu Mingjai looked at Han Sen's standing position, angle of his body, and the ups and downs of his shoulder. Soon Yu easily made his judgment. Such exaggerated acting. Clearly there is no momentum. He clearly seems to be bluffing, but it is a yin blow for sure. I was better than this in kindergarten. Yu Mingjai raised his arm with some contempt, ready to block this white fist from Han Sen. He even used only one arm to show off his self-confidence and accurate judgment. Bang! Han Sen punched Yu Mingjai on the arm. Yu's face suddenly froze. He thought this punch was thrown with the yin force and used only one arm to block Han Sen's fist. But the fierce punch was actually a black fist, which was a yang force, and Yu's arm was smashed into his own face. Sparkles suddenly flew before Yu's eyes and a feeling of soreness hit his nose. He fell back involuntarily and sat on the floor. A hush descended on the entire room as the students were dazed. The result of the first round could be explained by the fact that Yu was unprepared, whereas the second punch was hit when Yu was intent and alert. However, Yu Mingjai still made the wrong judgment. Han Sen is awesome. He is good at black and white boxing as well. Haha, no matter what the outcome would be, this one punch is good enough. It is the chosen he is playing against. So cool. He is the pride of Blackhawk. Haha, did you see how the expression of Yu Mingjai has changed? Han Sen is simply my idol. Yu Mingjai wiped his bloody nose and got up, unable to keep smiling. But he did not give up like Tang thought he should. Yu Jiaming continued to believe that his loss was due to his carelessness and walked up to Han Sen again. Another punch was thrown at Yu's face. Eyes locked on Han Sen, Yu again made a judgment. From any perspective, Han Sen's punch was not firm though it looked fierce. Yu decided that it was a harmless punch. Bang! Yu Mingjai's face turned ashy gray and was only able to stabilize his body after stepping back. He looked at Han Sen, astonished. It was impossible, and the students were so excited that they were about to cry out loud. No one had expected Han Sen to beat Yu once again. If it was not for the fact that the class was still in session, they would go up and hug Han Sen, because it was such an honor for a Blackhawk student to beat the chosen 3 times in a row. Fixing his gaze on Han Sen, Yu threw a hard punch at the young student. Seeing the fear on the students' faces, Yu smiled within himself. Now all of you must have thought that I have been angry and want to retaliate, so this punch must a black fist. That would be unfortunate since I threw a white punch. This way I would win this round and look like a bigger person at the same time, salvaging my own reputation. Yu Mingjai believed that Han Sen would definitely dodge, yet the young student did not even cross his arms. Han Sen simply reached out a hand in front of Yu's fist. Yu Mingjai suddenly turned pale, since his fist was grabbed by Han Sen. The two stood still. #T. Just awesome. I thought it was a black fist for sure, and it was a white one. Han Sen is so great. That is dope. And he is so confident. He is so good at everything. Professor Yan was still meticulously analyzing and teaching. More and more students had come since they heard about Han Sen's performance. Even the corridor outside the windows was full. Those who could not come were also watching the synchronous holographic session via their smart device. After Professor Yan's class, Jai Yanran saw many students hovering over Han Sen and decided not to join them. Jai Yanran checked the time and turned toward the cafeteria. She knew for sure that around this time, Han Sen would go to the cafeteria where there were their favorite juices. Jai Yanran did not go far before she was stopped by Lily, who had run over. "Sweetie, did you go and check on our genius in the middle of our class? Who said I went to see him?" Jai Yanran curled her lips and said with shame, "Why else would you skip the class?" Lily asked, puzzled. "To eat," Jai Yanran said and walked toward the cafeteria. Lily followed her to the cafeteria. Jai Yanran deliberately sat in plain sight and thought with venom, "If that bastard does not take the initiative to come over, I will not forgive him." "Sweetie, are you waiting for someone?" Lily suddenly asked. "No," Jai Yanran replied absent-mindedly. "Then why do you keeping looking at the door?" asked Lily, puzzled. Jai Yanran suddenly blushed and withdrew her gaze in panic. She bowed her head to eat and replied, "I did not." "Sweetie, you are a bit weird today." Lily looked her up and down. "The genius is here," someone whispered. Lily quickly looked to the door and saw Han Sen and Zhang Yang entering the cafeteria. Lily suddenly looked at Jai Yanran with disbelief. "Sweetie, you were waiting for him, right? How did you know he would come here? Tell me." "Stop it. I was not waiting for him. And how would I know he'd be here?" Jai Yanran covered her own panic by taking a sip of her juice. When Lily had thought of more to ask, Han Sen and Zhang Yang had carried their trays to the girls' table and asked with a smile, "Sisters, can we sit here?" "Of course." Lily looked at Jai Yanran, who kept drinking her juice, and looked back at Han Sen. She had understood something. The genius is sitting with Jai Yanran. Is there something going on between them? "Shut up." How long has he been here? I have never seen them walking together either. But it seems that their relationship is unusual. Jai Yanran now regretted coming to the cafeteria. It was a rushed decision and she was less mad at Han Sen since he had come over. However, the concerning eyes on her was almost burning a hole in her face. All she could do was drinking her juice. Hi Han Sen, my name is Lily, Warship Command Major. This is my roommate Jai Yanran. You should have heard of her. Lily smiled and reached out a hand. Hello, I am in the archery department, and I am Jai Yanran's boyfriend. Han Sen shook her hand friendly. Jai Yanran suddenly choked on her juice and everyone who heard that was appalled. Han Sen said that naturally, while it was quite an arrogant remark in the ears of others, no one had dared to claim to be Jai's boyfriend. The genius is just different. S-T. Is he for real? They are really together. This is too fast. He has only been here for a few months. There goes our campus belle. But he would be the only one who deserves her anyway. Gossip filled the cafeteria as people whispered and sent pictures to the campus community. The genius's girlfriend exposed. You would not believe who she is. Campus belle taken. A variety of different titles and videos filled the community in a sudden. At this time, Lily was looking at Han Sen, stunned. Although she thought there was something going on, she did not expect him to admit being her boyfriend. Based on her understanding of Jai Yanran, her roommate would never let this happen. I will kick your ass right now if you keep talking this way, shouted Monkey among a group of men who had come over to this table. Our president has said before, whoever wants to be her boyfriend has to beat her at hand of God. Can you? Monkey asked coldly. That is easy, Han Sen said casually. Staring at Han Sen, Lai Yufeng suddenly said, now you have to beat me before you could pursue Yanran. Now isn't that even easier? Han Sen laughed. What did you say? Monkey and the rest were furious. Lai Yufeng stopped them and threw a fiery gaze at Han Sen. Then we will have one match. If you lose, do not let me see you around her again. Is that necessary? You have lost already. Han Sen smiled. With both of her hands on the table and her eyes fixed on Han Sen, she almost shouted, are you Jai Yanran's boyfriend? The onlookers were shocked by Lily. They all felt that Lily was making a big deal out of nothing, since Han Sen just said he was. But Lily quickly changed her way of asking, are you my girlfriend is Jai Yanran? All of a sudden, everyone opened their mouths wide. They did not expect that this was the guy who had beaten Lai Yufeng by 20 points on the BattleNet. Now that Han Sen had personally admitted that he was Jai Yanran's boyfriend, was it not the most plausible theory that he was behind that ID? That's my BattleNet ID, Han Sen replied casually. Lai Yufeng, Monkey and the rest all went pale. They could not believe this. If Han Sen was really my girlfriend is Jai Yanran, then there was no need for another match indeed. No wonder the genius said he had won already. So he is my girlfriend is Jai Yanran. The genius is out of this world. I thought he was good at warframes, but he is better at black and white boxing. Now he is even better at Hand of God and has beaten Lai Yufeng by 20 points. Great God, he is one of a kind. This news made many feel incredible and relieved at the same time. After all, unless it was Jai Yanran's boyfriend, who would be so shameless to use that ID? But the news was still earth-shaking in Blackhawk, whose campus belle finally had a boyfriend, Han Sen. Jai Yanran was the campus belle, but Han Sen was even more famous. The genius who had the starry cup in his pocket, beat the chosen in black and white boxing and killed it at Hand of God. Many people only felt a bit surprised when hearing the news, and soon thought that it was rather natural. Even the photos of Han Sen and Jai Yanran together looked sweet and natural. When the two stood together, people noticed that although Han Sen was not as good looking, he had a man's determination. What was more incredible was his skin was even better than his girlfriend's, making many girls jealous. Any picture with Jai Yanran and Han Sen and it was beautiful. They looked perfect together like a sword belonged to its knight. Wait, have we met recently? The more she looked at Han Sen, the more familiar Lily felt. Suddenly, Lily thought of something incredible and her eyeballs almost fell out. She pointed at Han Sen. You, dormitory. Before could finish that sentence, Jai Yanran blushed and dragged her back to the dorm. Sweetie, I did not see that you have such potentials. Tell me, when did you have this guy under your skirt? I can't believe you pretended not knowing him and said you had no idea who your boyfriend was, said Lily with a faint smile, glancing at Jai Yanran who had her face covered up in a blanket. Jai Yanran said with a look of pretended annoyance, it's not like that. I really did not know it was him. Digang had agreed to Han Sen's terms and signed a contract with him. There were many activities that he needed to attend. One of the most important activities was that Digging would host a Digging Warframe match on the 10th of the next month, and Han Sen had to participate in it. And the period of time before the match would see overwhelming advertising campaigns of the new Warframe, SKTS. On the 10th of the next month, the Digging Warframe match would start and SKTS would be launched, while Starry Cup finals would also begin. As the spokesperson of Digging, Han Sen needed to appear in its commercials and campaigns, which he was glad to oblige. His Silver Killer had already been sent back to the lab to have a weapon system installed. But even if he still had it, Han Sen could not operate Silver Killer, because the only Warframe he should be driving for the time being was SKTS. SKTS had almost the same appearance as Silver Killer, but its performance level was much lower. As a prototype, Silver Killer was even better than ordinary military Warframes, let alone the civil ones. But the outsiders could not distinguish between Silver Killer and SKTS at all. From their looks, they were the same Warframe. All of Digging's campaigns had been about the concept of super biological Warframe, but none had shown the appearance of this new Warframe. At this time, Digging was seizing the time to shoot the commercials for SKTS for publicity. Digging had informed Blackhawk to allow Han Sen to take a leave from school when there was no holidays so that he could go to a base of Digging for the shooting. Because it was a trade secret, Han Sen could not tell anyone anything before the commercials were aired. Han Sen just told Jai Yanran that he had some errands to run before he was taken by the staff of Digging. In a corner office at the base of Digging, an 18-year-old girl in white uniform was arguing in front of Liu Changming. General Manager Liu, I believe that I have the ability and confidence to star the commercial. Why would you ask me to be just a pretty face and let an ordinary military school student to star the commercial? Please give me an explanation. Yu Kaiying-sun was sizzling with anger. Although obedience was the first duty of a soldier, Yu Kaiying-sun, who was from a service family, could not accept the fact that she had to be a stooge to an ordinary student. As a member of the Special Warframe Force, as well as the fourth and the only female among the chosen this year, Yu Kaiying-sun was a bigger star than Tang Zhenliu and Lin Feng. As early as a year ago, Yu was designated as the official spokesperson of Digging and had endorsed most of the company's new products. The sales numbers of those products had been great. That was why it was difficult for her to accept the order to act in a supporting role to an ordinary military school student, who was from Blackhawk. Maybe for an average person, Blackhawk was regarded as a prestigious school, but for her, who was in Alliance Central Military Academy, Blackhawk was nothing. Kaiying-sun, you are not in a supporting role. You are the heroine, and he is the hero, and the commercial will be starred by both of you, Liu Changming said with a smile. Besides, now all young people like to see a beauty in the commercials. You will definitely attract more attention than he ever will. General Manager Liu, do you think I'm a 3-year-old? This is a Warframe commercial. Have you ever seen a heroine who does not drive the Warframe? Asked Yu Kaiying-sun, biting her lip. She had seen the script. Although she was the heroine, there was no scene where she would drive SKTS. The point of her being there was her face, which was not something she was used to. And she was indeed playing a supporting role. After all, whoever drove a Warframe could be called a star in the commercial. Kaiying-sun, you are not only a soldier, but also a star. Trust your performing skills and I believe you can make yourself the protagonist of you too. Liu Changming narrowed his eyes and said. But, Yu Kaiying-sun wanted to say anything, but was interrupted by Liu. No, but, this is an order. If you have any opinion, you can go talk to your superior. Liu Changming darkened his face. Yu bit her lip and had to step out of Liu's office. A soldier before a star, she must obey orders despite her own unwillingness. As a member of the Special Warframe Force, she could not even touch the Warframe in a Warframe commercial, which was definitely a shame for her. I want to see who it is that took this role from me. Yu Kaiying-sun ground her fine teeth. If it was for any other commercial, Yu Kaiying-sun would not mind as much, but she was really into SKTS. In her eyes, SKTS was leading the revolution in the Warframe industry. Hence it was her sincere hope to star the commercial for this Warframe. Han Sen was received by Liu Changming himself when he came to the base. Han Sen did not dare to trifle with Liu, who was the general manager of Digging and a major general. Fortunately, Liu Changming had a great impression of Han Sen, and their meeting was also quite pleasant. Liu Changming personally arranged for Han Sen's residence and welcome dinner, where almost everyone involved in the commercial showed up. Liu introduced the director, producer and everyone else to Han Sen. The only one missing was the heroine, but Han Sen did not know there would be a heroine at all and simply enjoyed his meal. The next day, someone took him to the Warframe training ground to get familiar with SKTS. Looking at its appearance, Hansen could hardly distinguish between SKTS and Silver Killer. The only difference was that when folded up, SKTS was bigger than Silver Killer. Silver Killer was the size of a portable briefcase, while SKTS was like a luggage case. An array of SKTS were placed on the stage, looking identical. Hansen picked one and turned it on. Although it had the same appearance, Hansen felt the difference after he started to drive. In SKTS, the comfort of driver was improved, whereas the performance was significantly reduced. But even SKTS was much better than the King series of Starry Group in both performance and smoothness. Used to using a high-performance Warframe, Hansen was driving SKTS in his usual style, which led to small deviations in the Warframe's movements. Some acts that Hansen assumed that SKTS would perform easily actually failed due to its lack of horsepower. Having been watching him secretly in an SKTS on the side, Yu Kyung-sun felt even worse for herself being a stooge to this guy. Even if I could not get the leading role back, I will show you what it is like to be a true Warframe operator, thought Yu. Turning her Warframe on, she commanded it to draw a laser sword and rush toward Hansen. When practicing, Hansen suddenly saw an object approaching him at a high speed from the radar. He looked up and saw another SKTS coming toward him with a sword in its hand. Assuming that it was arranged to get him familiar with the Warframe, Hansen was not surprised. Controlling his Warframe to hold a sword in hand, he was ready for the fight. But Hansen misunderstood one thing. He thought there was an operator in each SKTS in the array, and was prepared to be thrown into a group fight. Hence, he thought he should get rid of the first Warframe coming at him as fast as possible, so that it would be easier for him to deal with the rest. Liu Changming and the director of the commercial Zhu Wencheng were monitoring Hansen's practice through a monitor. Suddenly seeing a SKTS moving, they both paused. And then Liu Changming suddenly knew what was happening and his face became grave. It must be Yu Kyung-sun. This is such nonsense. Ready to ask someone to stop her, Liu Changming rose up but was stopped by Zhu Wencheng, who smiled and said, "Liu, it is okay. You said Hansen is a Warframe genius, so wouldn't it be brilliant if you could just beat her so that she would play her role willingly?" Liu Changming said a wry smile, "Zhu, you do not know Yu's background. She comes from a Warframe family where generations of people have been dedicated to Warframe operation. She was sent to the special Warframe force when she turned 16 and have been practicing with the best men ever since. Few at her age could be better than her at Warframe." Having taken a deep breath, Liu Changming continued, "Hansen is very good, but I cannot guarantee that he will be able to beat her. Moreover, she has been practicing on SKTS for days, while he is just getting started. The performance of SKTS is much worse than Silver Killer, so he must be still getting used to it." "Ugh, let's stop her immediately then," Zhu Wencheng quickly said. "It's too late. Let's hope for the best," Liu Changming said with a wry smile. Even if he sent someone right now, it would be too late for that person to stop you. Yu Kyung-sun's style of operation was like her character, taking the lead whenever possible. She would fight without fear even when she was against someone much stronger than herself. Yu Kyung-sun drove SKTS at full speed toward Hansen. With the power generated from the high speed, the SKTS wielded the sword from above fiercely. Seeing Hansen raising his sword to block her strike, she felt more disdained. With the same Warframe, hers had a higher speed than his, so it was predictable that his Warframe would suffer more. Once his Warframe fell to the ground, he would have no chance to adjust before she beat him. Yu Kyung-sun's strike was so fierce that she seemed to have put all her anger in it. The swords were merely 10 inches apart and were about to collide. Considering the size of SKTS, the distance was alarming. At this time, Yu suddenly saw Hansen's sword had disappeared. Yu Kyung-sun was shocked. But at this point there was nothing she could do other than watching the other SKTS turning swiftly and briskly appearing behind her. Bang! In the blink of an eye, Hansen controlled his SKTS to kick the other Warframe on the back. Accompanied by its inertia of going forward, Yu's Warframe was brought to its knees. With the intense impact, Yu Kyung-sun was dumbfounded, not just because of the physical pain, but also because she could not believe she would lose like this to someone that she despised. For a moment, she did not move. She knew her opponent could have used his sword instead of foot, which would ruin her and her SKTS. Liu Changming and Zhu Wencheng were also dazed. They had never thought that she would lose so fast. "This young man is really good," commented Liu Changming gladly. He had had enough of Yu Kyung-sun's festering these days. Now she had no reasons to complain. Zhu Wencheng also smiled and said, "Indeed, it is wonderful for an unevolved person to have such performance." Trying to taking it from other SKTS when Hansen got rid of Yu Kyung-sun, he found the other warframes remained still. It seemed that it was the only warframe that he was supposed to spar with. When Han Sen was confused, a beautiful girl in white uniform came out of the SKTS on the floor. She was breathtaking and even comparable to Jai Yanran, although Jai was sweet, while Yu Kyung-sun was valiant. They were both gorgeous in their own style. The real warframes have too much constraint. We should fight again using the holographic simulation machine, Yu said aloud, walking toward Han Sen. She was not convinced and thought her loss must be because she had underestimated her opponent. However, at this time, she had to concede that Han Sen was a great warframe operator, and not someone she could beat easily. After all, it was not the battlefield and SKTS was quite expensive, so she wanted to ask him to use the simulation to fight, where they would have less constraints. Han Sen thought she was an opponent arranged by the company and followed her lead to the simulation machine. As he was walking, Han Sen thought, Digging is so thoughtful to have arranged such a beauty to spar with me. I was being so rude to her and have to act like a gentleman later. Han Sen was, of course, not thinking about losing on purpose. He only intended to wait longer before he won, letting the girl show her strength. Digging had paid for his operation skills, and why would they do that if he could not even beat the girl they had arranged? Coming from a military family, she had a straightforward style and respected whoever's stronger than herself. Just lots of time and energy. Haven't you heard that saying? Han Sen shrugged, feeling slightly proud of himself being praised by such a beauty. What saying? Yu Kyung-sun was confused. Success is 99% of talent plus 1% of hard work. Han Sen laughed. Yu hesitated and asked him, You mean that success is 99% of hard work plus 1% of talent, right? Sorry, made a mistake there. Han Sen felt a bit embarrassed, thinking that he should go more often to the cultural courses at school so that he could pass the school's semi-annual assessment. Yu Kyung-sun looked at Han Sen, and suddenly felt he meant what he had said. Without any calluses on his hands, he had skin as smooth as tofu and looked nothing like someone who would work hard. 99% of talent plus 1% of hard work. I will keep that in mind. She cast another glance at him. Although she did not believe in geniuses, Han Sen seemed to be a living example. Liu Changming and Zhu Wencheng both watched their simulated fights and were surprised by the outcome. It was hard to find any match for Yu Kyung-sun among her peers. However, she lost to Han Sen completely, which was absolutely beyond their expectations. It seems that Han Sen was better than we have imagined. Great addition to the special squad. When he becomes an evolver in a couple of years, he will be even more extraordinary, Liu Changming pondered and said. Zhu Wencheng nodded. Qin Xuan has great judgment. It was impressive that she was able to pick him out. I have always had faith in the people chosen by the Qins. Liu Changming laughed. Han Sen later learned that Yu was the heroine instead of his training mate. As cheeky as he was, he felt embarrassed. Fortunately, Yu Kyung-sun did not know his thoughts. Because she had been convinced by Han Sen's talents, she was very cooperative in the shooting. In fact, even if she was not convinced, as a soldier, she would do her best to follow the order. The only difference was that she would act more naturally this way. During the shooting, Yu Kyung-sun would spar with Han Sen and ask him questions whenever she had the opportunity. As she got to know him better, she felt even more intimidated by him. Han Sen's speed was one of the things that made her feel inferior to. She estimated that she would only be able to do that when she maxed out on her sacred Geno points. Later, she treated him as a superior and even an idol to catch up with. If it weren't for his tender skin, she might even treat him as a teacher. However, she rather enjoyed squeezing Han Sen's face for the nice feel, which was actually quite alarming for Han Sen. The effect of jade skin had shown and he was afraid that someone might be able to tell that he was practicing this hyper-Geno art. Because of the special properties of a biological warframe, its color could not be changed. An ordinary SKTS was in silver and even the owner added a coating on the outside. As long as the warframe was turned to its compressed form, the coating would disappear. So, Han Sen's request was to ask Liu Changming to add some blue patterns on his SKTS. Han Sen had already had his silver killer and was not interested in driving SKTS. With some decoration, it could at least look impressive when he took it out for a spin. Liu Changming agreed, but the color changing was quite difficult and required high-level technology. If the warframe were to be made entirely blue, it would be easier. However, to add blue patterns required the professors in the laboratory to manually change part of the particle structure. When Yu Kyung-sun found out about Han Sen's request and saw the holographic design of the blue and silver warframe, she requested the same patterns in red to be put on hers. For this reason, Han Sen stayed at the base for several more days and did not immediately return to school. Finally, on September 1st, Digging held the press conference on time. Different from the press conferences before, this one was hosted by Liu Changming personally. Facing the journalists from all the major press in the alliance, he said only one sentence: "Please enjoy epoch-making creation presented to you by Digging." After that, a holographic commercial started to play and all the audience were placed in a campus in the springtime, with breezes blowing gently. Then, they saw a beautiful girl sitting under a tree next to the playground, reading a book, her silky dark hair slightly fluttering. The scene was so breathtaking that the audience were afraid their breath might disturb her. Sunshine, green grass, and the beautiful girl brought them back to their innocent school days. Yu Kaiyang-sun, I knew it would be her, all the journalists were thinking. The recent Digging products were all endorsed by Yu Kaiyang-sun, with great market effect. Therefore, everyone thought Digging would continue to hire her, and it seemed that they were right about it. The scene was followed by a close-up of the book in her hands. In the sun, it felt like the ink could be smelled. However, darkness suddenly fell on the pages and Yu Kaiyang-sun looked up, frightened. A grotesque, giant warship appeared in the sky and covered the entire school like a dark cloud. A Shira warship. The journalists recognized what it was. Bang! An ugly warframe fell to the ground, leaving a deep pit. The warframe stood up, the sword in its hand yearning for blood. Next, Shira warframes flooded out of the monster-like Shira warship. The monsters descended from heaven at the same time, turning a sweet scene into hell. The earth was shaking, the gunfire was roaring, and the students were crying and running around. The girl played by Yu Kaiyang-sun was also desperately running, holding the book in her arms. But how could her legs carry her faster than the Shira warframes? Not to mention the warframes were everywhere. A suffocating despair spread in the hearts of all the audience. At this critical moment, she tripped over something and fell to the ground, and the book fell in front of her. Struggling to sit up, she reached for the book in panic. When she turned back, she saw the school under attack and the frightening groups of Shira warframes rushing over. Seeing the despair on her face, everyone was heartsick at once, wishing they could save the poor girl. But there were too many Shira warframes, and one of them had even slashed at the girl with a sword. Bang! A silver box suddenly hit the bloody sword aside, the letters TS engraved on the box. The silver box finally fell into the hands of a boy in school uniform, who pressed the box and threw it up in the air. That will be all for now. I hope you find this story interesting. Leave a like, subscribe, and enable notifications so you won't miss the next part of this story. Have a wonderful day. Goodbye.